All right, thanks.
Waiting back this serious like waiting back like this.
Okay, so good
Oh
afternoon.
wow.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can everyone hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so let me just turn on my camera since it's the first time. Um, I'm introducing myself. Okay, so I'm Kilichi Ekebo, just like Iduzie said. I'm a front end developer in Genesis Tech Hub. So today I'll be taking you guys on Git and GitHub, and since it's the first time, Sha, thank you for having me, and I hope that by the end of this class, I would would know, like, would have learned the everything that we need to know from the introduction to Git, because I did learn that this is you guys are in a beginner level. So I'm going to keep things simple. I'm going to keep things as simple as possible, as as basic as possible. And I'm hoping that if anyone has any questions along the line, you should, just go straight to the or hit me with whatever it is. But yeah, thank you guys for having me. And then I'm just going to proceed. I'll turn on my camera and proceed. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to be sharing my screen because I prepared a slide. I thought slide to be um I you know I have a slide, and we'll still do stuff around practical stuff on Visual Studio Code. So, but because I know that this is everyone here is in a beginner level. Let me quickly share my screen. Um, can you guys hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so and you can see my screen, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, sure. All right. So introduction to Git and GitHub. Right. So let's just go jump right into it. So what's Git? So you know that, as you all know, we're all software developers. At least everyone here is a software developer, or at least aspiring software developers, right? And we've all had our hands around, um, at least to some extent, you've written some lines of code, and then at some point you saved your code somewhere, and then at some point you just had to, like, maybe you just remembered something, maybe some change you wanted to make to your code, and then you had to go back to make the change, and then the action keeps repeating itself, right? So imagine that imagine you just had just you and your folder, right? So imagine right now your code is still very simple, concise, because we're all still you're trying to learn, you're probably learning how to build your JavaScript, how to build, maybe for those of you that are in front end, you're still trying to learn how to build build your UIs, right? And then when you make changes to your code, like you make a change to your code that would affect a particular line, and then maybe after a while, for some reason, you just want to, revert back that change, right? And then on reverting back that change, you just realize that you made a mistake. You shouldn't have changed, or you shouldn't have deleted this thing, that you just made it because now you need it, right? That can be frustrating. That can be really, really frustrating because you just find yourself doing or repeating something that you had already done, right? So if you had something like, if you had the chance, like if you had something like Git, right? If you had something handy like Git would Git would Git would come in from the point of, okay, well, you don't have to rewrite what you have already written. All you just need to do is go to so and so place, get that code, and update it to what you have. This is just where Git comes in when it comes to development, when it comes to building projects. So that's supposed to be just a small introduction, right? So what is Git? So basically, Git is a version control tool that helps you seamlessly manage the various versions of your project or your application, as you know. So what does that mean? It means that it's a tool that helps you manage the different versions of a project, because from time to time you would want to change features in your project, you want to add new stuff to your project, you want to have new versions of the product, because this is software development, right? We're all talking about software development here, and we know how software development is. Things are constantly changing, and new versions are constantly coming out. You might build something for a client, and the client will tell you, no, please, I want this. I no longer want this thing. I want to add something else. Those things will come up, and what better way to manage? Because if there was no like, what better way to manage those changes or those new versions than Git? Without Git, what you have to do is to have different. You can have different folders, because right now I know that all of your applications are in folders. And so let's say you have a folder and you're building this application, and then maybe you're trying to make a completely different change, right? If you want to make like a completely different change, you might have to like create a different folder and then compare those changes by file by files. Well, depending on how big it is, maybe you might not need to create another folder. Maybe you might just need to create a new file. But that's that would be that can be done when it's just you working on a project. But imagine when it's you and a couple of other guys working on a team project. So you just have different folders on different the rest of the team's lab systems, and then you now have to manually update changes, but which can be stressful as the project grows. But with Git allows you to do these things seamlessly. So to manage the various versions of a project seamlessly without having to
Please,
go
ma'am.
through all of that route. Yeah.
Please, ma'am, I cannot see your screen, ma'am.
Okay. Let
Let's
me
start the Zoom now.
let me. How about now?
Yes, it's fine. Thank you.
Okay. So it's used to coordinate. It's used for coordinating work collaboratively. You know, developing source code during software development. So that's one other thing you need to know about Git. And then it's also open source, right? When you say something is open source, you're just basically saying that it's it's open for other people to other people to use, is also open for other developers to either contribute to it or access it in some in some sort of way. It's open source. That's what open source project is. And then lastly, because this course is not just Git, this course is also Git and GitHub. So GitHub is a cloud-based hosting server for hosting our projects, our repositories. Cloud-based in codes because your server is hosted in the cloud and all, and so it's easier. There's easier access to cloud-based servers. But yeah, that's it about Git. So just a little recap: Git is a version control tool that helps you to seamlessly manage various versions of the project. And just like I said, when you have to work on projects, when you're working on projects alone, and for some reason you want to change or apply some form of modification to your project, you might want to like just have another. You might just you might just want to like create another file and then compare the changes as the case may be. Which, if you're working on a project by yourself, it might not be such a hassle. But when you're working on a project with other people, right? When you're working on a project with other people, it means that every other person will have a copy of that project on their file, and then when each one of each one of the team member or each of the team members wants to update what they have on their local repository to what's on the main project, they will have to manually compare the changes on each file, which can be stressful. But what Git does is that Git helps us to seamlessly do the same thing in like we don't have to manually compare files. We can just seamlessly, compare each files using some features. I will go into those features, or I will go into deeper explanation of how Git allows us to do this same thing in a more seamless and in a faster way. Right. So that's it about Git. And then, so just on the second slide, history of Git. So before we had Git, like I said, we'll just what teams would do, like teams that are working on a project together would just manually compare their changes and then update their changes manually, compare files. So you would have patches of projects. But before, so all of that was what was obtainable then until Linus Torvalds. You guys know him, or at least some of you might have heard of him. So he's the guy behind the Linux operating system. So he was one that invented, sorry, this is invented, not invested. He invented Git in 2005. And so before that, the Linux operating system, or at least, yeah, the Linux operating system, some of you already know, already use that, they had some form of collaboration with these beekeeper guys, right? And so they were working together, and with because they wanted to they wanted to they, they wanted to have a different way of comparing different versions of their softwares. And then they thought of this whole idea, the idea behind distributed systems, where each one of them can have access to a copy. Don't worry, I'll go deeper into what distributed systems are later in this class. But just for the sake of talking about how the history of this came up. So they wanted to find out a way of handling this process without manually having to do it. So the Linux community, or the Linux guys, did some form of collaboration with this other, the Beatkeeper guys. Well, let me just did some form of collaboration that allowed them to use distributed systems, to work on something collaboratively. But after some time, I think in 2005, there was some form of let's see, what's the right word now? There was a bass boost that broke out between those two guys, and then this guy, what's his name? decided to out of whatever the buzz was, the result of the buzz was led him to prompted him to develop his own tool that was tied to what they wanted, which is having a distributed system that will still allow them to collaboratively work together seamlessly. And that was how Git came about. So, okay, I need water. Since then, so that was in 2005. And then since then, Git has evolved and matured to become easy to use, and yet with the best qualities. Git is fast. Git is very efficient when it comes to storing data. Incredible. It has like a wow version system compared to other version control tools. And then before I even move into version control tool, just let's have in mind that before we had, or Git is not the only version control tool actually. So you have the sub version. You can Google that much later. But yeah, there's Mercurial. These are all version control tools too, but they have their own perks. But Git turned out to be the best. Git turned out to be the most popular because of its special features. Like first, it's distributed. The distributed system. Second, it has this staging area. Allows you to save. So it just has some extra perks, that made it more popular. For instance, it allows you to save snapshots. I beg, who wants to start the party? Can you mute the person's mic? Who be this one? I beg go. After our class, we can continue to do that one. But yeah, so we had wait did I that what was I even saying? Yeah, so we have so Git has a special feature that made it more popular than other version control tools. So like Git enabling you to keep snapshots of your project in like whenever in a staging area. I'll still explain that further, right? Or at least I would explain why that's special, or why that feature is special when we get to that slide. But yeah, so there's something we call centralized systems and distributed systems. So with a centralized system, everyone that's working on a particular project will connect to a central server, right? And what that means is that you have a central server, which is the one that has, or maybe the main server that has the main project, or like the main project that every other person will now, connect from. But why that is bad is that imagine something happens to that server. Let's say some network reason, for instance, network issues, for instance, or maybe it's that something, maybe that server goes down or has downtime. It means that every other person that's working on the team will not be able to like access that server, right? Because it's centralized, everything is happening there, which is really, really risky. And that's where distributed systems have better advantage over centralized servers, because in a distributed system, everyone has a copy of the central repository. And then if for any reason something happens to the centralized server, or maybe the server is down for some reason, you can still be able to sync up with your team member, in the sense that you, as one of the team members working on your local repository, can simply pull, or at least sync up with what another team member has on their, or you can simply sync up, or like pull what another team member has into your own project, or into your own repository, right? So that's why distributed systems are are better, and Git is in one of the version control tools that uses distributed systems. And then the next slide, why do we need Git? Now, like I explained before, without Git, you would have different patches or different folders of your records of your project in different computers, and you have to manually sync them up if you're trying to update the changes that you have on your project. You have to do all of that manually, and it's stressful as the project grows. When you start out small, it might not be so stressful, or you might not notice the stress. But imagine what happens when the project begins to, or when the code base begins to grow, the code base becomes larger. Imagine having to change lines of code, having to manually look through lines of code with your bare eyes, guy, is going to become stressful at some point. And so this is why we have Git. And then Git saves us from that hassle of having to do all of those things manual, and then having to copy different versions of your code. It saves us all of that. And then having to manually track our project history, because hey, sometimes you might want to know, okay, what time? Please, yes, please, I need 1 second. My throat is really dry. Please let me drink water, because I know if they talk if I continue. Just give me 5, let's say like 3 minutes, please.
I don't know if you just took it.
So I'm
I
back.
thought our screen was hanging up.
Yeah.
No, I thought your screen was hanging on mine.
Okay, okay. No, but you can still see my screen, bar.
Yes, I can see it. Well, he's saying Kelechi Ekebo has started screen sharing.
As what?
Like he said, that you have just started screen sharing.
Okay, okay, sure. So, so that's it about why we need Git. Yeah. So I was talking about. Oh yeah. So like, it also allows you to see history. You can see the history. You can see when someone made a change. You can see who made the change. You can have at least, you can see the author that made the change. You can see the ID of that particular change. And then you can also see, yeah, you can see at least, yeah, you can see the history you get, like from what changed from one commit to the other, from one commit to the other. By the way, commit, we've not gotten to what commit means. We're getting there. But yeah, these are the reasons why we need to use Git, you know. And then in the next slide, so how do we use Git? So we can either use Git using a command line, and this is where the practicals come in. You know, every system has a command line. Can you guys still see my screen? I think I was just sharing only my window. So let me just stop sharing and share my entire thing. So that you can also see my command line. So I'll do entire screen. Can I not share a window or share a tab? Okay. So even if I navigate to my command line, you guys can still see it. Okay. So you guys can see my screen now, ba? Can you guys see my screen?
It's still loading, ma. It's still loading.
It's still loading from our own end.
It's still
Okay.
loading from our own end.
I don't know if you could like stop sharing the screen and start sharing it again.
Okay.
Yeah, we can see it now.
Okay. So I'm just going to open my command line. Let me close this. By the way. So here's my command line. Sorry, I was working on a project before I started this class. So let me just stop and then go to okay. So I'm just going to first off, so you can use Git using a command line, which is what I have here. Every system comes with a command line, so you can use Git through your command line. But as you're installing Git, Git also has like a command line that comes with it, which we call Git Bash. That when you enable, you can also use it, right? So you can also use Git through you can also use Git using GUI client, which is graphical user graphical user interface client. So a good example is the Git cracking, right? Or the source tree. I haven't really used the source tree. I just know that it's tailored to people that use Windows and Mac. But Git cracking is for all operating systems, right? So people that use Git clients, like when you like beginners, like just like when you're just starting off with Git and you're not used to command lines, because I know a lot of people, especially when we're beginning, are scared of command lines because it's like more. So if you're a beginner and then you don't feel you're not conversant with how command lines work, I would advise you to use Git client, like a GUI Git client, because at least it gives you a user interface where you can interact with. Let's see. So this is Git cracking. You can quickly install it because it's also like a free client version, so you can just quickly install. And as you can see here, you can see the command line, so you can see the user interfaces that allows you to have better views, better interactivity with your files with Git cracking. But this is not our focus for this class. So maybe I might just drop the link. I just drop the link and then you can just check it out at your own time. What's going on? Is that not the chat? Okay. Share with everyone. I think I have to have some form of access before. Some form of, I can't share this for some reason. Why is this asking who can see your messages recording? Um, A dossier.
Yeah.
Are you supposed to have some? Why is this restricting me? Wait, though. Just 1 second.
Sorry, I cannot hear you clearly.
I'm trying to share the link.
Yeah, you can just copy it
I'm,
and
I'm-
post it on the chat section.
yeah, but I'm getting some form of restriction.
Okay, let me check if there's any issue. You should not be getting any restriction. You are the co-host. Share with everyone.
Mhm.
It might be a glitch on their end.
Who is Joan Oyanosi?
It's one of the Upskill participants. Maybe you could share to her, then she shares it on the group, on the chat section. Sorry.
She's not here. That's the problem. Anyways, if anybody can see
No one are
chat.
you here?
Share Egbe Chukwu the journal.
Okay, just share it to him then Jonah, you can share it on the chat section.
This is sick. This is anyways. Anyway, this is not the page. This isn't the paid version, so what? Restricted. That's really weird though.
Click on the name, then you click on share to everybody.
Okay, so you can see now. Okay. Voila.
Yeah, please, Jonah, can
So
you share to
yeah.
everyone?
Oh, he has shared it. So yeah. So you can also use built-in UI from code editors. So for those of you that use, I know some of you already use Visual Studio Code, and I'm just going to share my screen to show you guys the Git editor in Visual Studio Code. I just have to use, let me open one project, let me not open it directly. Let me just go to my command line and lscd react apps. I'm just trying to navigate into my React application, and then I do have a folder that I called. Is it okay? No. I have a folder that I call Genesis Community. So Genesis Community. So I'm just going to open this folder in Visual Studio Code so that we can see so you can use Git using any of the GM user interfaces from your editor. So for now, I'm using my Visual Studio Code, and then this is the here. That's where you have the Git user interface. This is the icon, and then when you click on this, you see that it already says that you initialize a repository. But since we don't even have any project yet, it's just an empty folder. We cannot do much. But what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to quickly create a simple file, just to start off with something. And I'm just going to call it, just probably call it index.js. I just created a simple file, and then I'll just write something, maybe JavaScript code as our change, as our modification to our code. So I have a file now called index.js. So right now I have not done anything about Git, right? Everything is just new and fresh. By the ways, if you want to check okay, yeah, before I go into that, so the point here is just to show you that with this icon, this is what the icon looks like. So in every visual, every editor has every editor has a Git GUI. In my case, which is the Visual Studio Code, this is my Git GUI icon. So when you click here, and have access to, it's just fresh and new. When we go in deeper in our course, you'll see. I also have Git Lens too. This one is also a Git GUI that gives you more functionalities. But we'll get into that. But it's just for you to see, hey, that you can also use Git and interact with Git using Git UIs that come with your editor. Yeah, so that's about how to use Git. In your next slide, tools you need. And then, okay, yeah, so first of all, we're going to do, in order to check the Git version, first of all, we need to install Git. So to install Git in your system, go to their Git documentation. So this is where, so you go to Git scn.com /downloads. So there's for Mac. So this is download for Mac users. For those of you that are Windows share, so this way you download for Mac users. Click on this, and then you can either install Git using Bro. Bro is just another package manager with the iOS that allows you you can install Git using Bro, and then Homebrew, and then you follow these commands. That's for people that are huge fans of command lines, or people that want to use command lines, but that's for Mac. I already have Git installed, so I won't need to go through this process again. But yeah, for Windows, this is for, click on this, and then it takes you to where you can either, so this is, yeah, so from here you can click here to get the latest version, and then once you click here, it downloads. And then for those of you that use Linux operating system, click on this and then follow through the command. So the app manager, this thing for installing Git on the Linux is the apt-get package manager. Anyway, those of you that use this thing know about that. But yeah, that's for installing Git. Since I already have this thing installed in my Mac, I'm just going to jump over that process. But once you have that installed, maybe I might just leave the link. I'll leave the link below, and then you guys can just share to this guy again. Yeah, so I can now send it directly. But yeah, once you have Git installed, you can come here and check the version of Git that you have. On your command line. Sorry. Yeah, so you can do git --. And then in my own case, I have version 2.37.1 currently in my system. Just trying to show you. I'm just trying to show you guys that you don't necessarily have to be on the once it's installed, it will go to your where you usually have your applications by default. By default. So yeah, so once you've done that, you can quickly check the Git version by running this on your command line, and then it will show you the version of your current version of Git that is installed in your system. Then there are two ways to enable Git bash on your Mac. When you're in the installation process, there's a prompt that will ask you to enable Git bash on your Mac, and then once you do that, then you have access to Git bash by default on your, like, even yeah, you have access to Git bash by default. But and then the next thing is how to configure Git configuration, because yes, you have Git installed, you also need to configure Git. And then to configure Git on your system, there are three different levels. So the first one is the, my phone is not charging. My laptop is not charging. Just hold on, guys. I'm trying to charge my system. Let me just plug this in directly. It's charging now. Okay. So there are three different levels. So you have the system level. You have the Git configuration level. So you have the system level, you have the global level, and then you have the local level. I missed that. I missed that out. Let me just quickly put them here. Away. What's happening? Okay, let me just do that here. Hope this doesn't take our time. Okay, this is about to take our bloody time. We're not having that. Okay, instead of this thing to take our time, sure, I just use small letters. So you have the Git, you have the system level, and you have the global level, you have the local level. So the system level configuration would configure every user on different repositories on that system. No, sorry, different users on that system, right? So for the global configuration, you're going to be adding, like, you're configuring for every one, you're configuring for one user, like on that system on different repositories. Why for the local configuration, you're configuring for that particular project on that system, right? I'm going to just show an example, a simple example. So for instance, if I come to my project, if I come to my command line now and do I'm not in a, let me cd into a repository, which is the Genesis community, right? So if I do if I want to configure it for, I want to do a global Git configuration, I'll simply do a git config dash dash. Can I say I do dash dash global or dash dash G short form user dot name. So I'm configuring my name, and then in this case I'm going to use Kilichi and then enter. Wait 1 second. Git config dash G user dot name. Git config. Okay, global config. What's wrong? Git config that I think I can do git config. Thanks. Okay, let's just try just to be on the safe side. Let's do global. So git config dash dash global user dot name. Yes, so and then if you want to configure your email, you do git config dash dash global user dot email dot name of your email that you want Git to recognize. So in this case, if anyone has any questions or any confusions, please reach out to let me know so that. But yeah, so now I've configured my Git to have to this name. So I've done a global configuration. So what this global configuration means is that this person, like this whoever this person is going to. So I've configured this name or this user, this Kelechi user and this kelechiekebo.gmail.com to have access to any other repository or different projects, right? So different projects that I'm using on this system would be Git will recognize different projects that I'm using on the system as this user that this Kelechi here and then kelechiekebo@gmail.com for any repository at all. So this is the global configuration. But if I wanted to do a local configuration, I'll have to navigate into the folder because that would be for local configurations, you're just basically configuring your name and your username, or in some cases, your name and your email to that particular project, right? So any other project is not affected, like the configuration will not be affected for any other projects. I hope I was able to make myself clear. But yeah, that's the I wouldn't want to do that because I already have a global configuration already. So yeah, that's about the different configuration levels. And then yeah, of course, without so you take off the global for local if you're configuring for a local because like if you're configuring locally for the project itself, you wouldn't have to use the dash dash global. So you just do in this case git config user.name and then the name, like the name that you want to use on that particular project. Emphasis on that particular project. Yeah. So that's about Git configurations. If you still have any questions, please let me know, reach out to me. Then there's something we call Git workflows. So Git workflows is basically the flow of from when you initialize Git to the end of when you've been able to when you initialize Git to when you've made a change to your project and you've added the project to your staging area and you've been able to push that change into a repository somewhere. Like remember when I said earlier in today's class that you have GitHub, that GitHub is basically a cloud-based a cloud-based server that allows us to save our or that allows us to host our repository right? Which is different from Git. Git is the tool. Why GitHub is the cloud-based server where we can host our repositories or like our our projects. Yeah. So moving on. So I just wanted to emphasize on so the first of all, in the project that I hadn't done anything yet. It's still fresh in my VS Code. So in this project, I haven't initialized Git yet. So as you can see, it's just an empty project with a file that is index.js. There's no Git yet, so nothing is happening yet. So I can also use this terminal here, or I can come here. I can come to my command line, and now I've configured Git. So I can come to my command line, sorry, and initialize Git. And if you want to initialize Git, what initializing Git means is basically adding a Git, initializing a Git folder, the .git folder into that project. That's you're saying, hey, Git, I want you to, I want you to, just basically adding an instance of Git in that project, right? So in order to do that, you do git init. If you see, I just did git init, and when I clicked on enter, it says initialize empty Git repository. Now, it has initialized empty Git repository on my project. And for us to see that, what happens is that whenever Git initializes an empty Git repository, it makes it hidden because it doesn't want you to have access to it, right, by default. Because there are some forms of configurations that Git wouldn't naturally want anyone to tamper with unless you want to go that extra mile. So if you do list, like this is a command that allows you to see a list of projects, a list of folders in your file. So if you do git list, you see that you won't see that Git repository because Git hides it by default. But if you run the command that allows you, there's a command that allows you to see hidden projects, which is I don't know why I'm saying this, not this, ls hyphen a, right? So when you do ls hyphen a, you can see a .git folder. It shows you that folder that has been hidden because this is a command that allows you to see the hidden folders, right? So if it shows you a dot, it shows you the Git, which the Git folder that was initialized by Git, and it's called like it's the .git folder. You can even do an open, right, .git. So it opens it by default so that you can see like what's inside the folder. But that's by the way. So moving on, so now we have initialized Git into our repository, and then now we're now saying Git, yeah, okay. So yeah, so if you see before we did the initialize Git init, we didn't have this. There was no what I call this notification or but there was no icon, there was nothing happening here. So just because we have initialized Git now knows that okay, hey, I'm trying to say, okay, Git, please, I'm adding Git to this project and I want you to do anything that you want, anything that I want you to do with it moving on from now. That's a for lack of better way to say it, but yeah. Now as you can see, you can see this before now we didn't have this, and now you can look at this and see what Git is doing here, right? I would explain this thing further in the class, but going back to my slide, I don't want to miss. Okay, so now, so these are a few, it has just for, so Git workflows, so you have the Git, once Git has been initialized, I need to add, let's add this, but where Git init, because it's more like a step-by-step thing. Git init. Now we've initialized Git, so we can now go back to our project and make a change to our project, right? So let's say I add a new change to my project and say I want to just console log the value of something. I've made a change, right? Now, when you go here, you can see this file is not displayed on the ADB because it's either non-binary. What this file? Let's hold on 1 second. ES store is an untracked file in DS. So let me check our command line. There's a file that just got added by default. I'm not sure I know what this file is. DS store. I don't even know why. DS store. I don't want this thing to take our time. I'll check that later. But yeah, so I've just made a change. I think I'm just going to unstage it. Okay, no, I'll leave it here. I'll just use it. So, but I just made a change to my file, right? And then look at what Git is doing. Git is showing me what the change was before now, which is just an empty file. And then now this is the new, this was it previously, and then this is the file now, right? So now what I'm going to do here is I've made a change to my file. The next thing I'm going to do is to add that change that I made in my file to Git. Because right now, Git, even though that Git has been initialized in a repository, is not doing anything yet. If you hover over this UI, you saw this, remember I said that you can also use your UI, your editor's UI. So if you hover over this file and change I made, you can see the name of the file or the path of the file, and then you can see something here on the side that says untracked. What that means is that Git has not started tracking this file yet, right? That's what that U means. U means is untracked, right? But if I want Git to start tracking that file, it means that I will have to enable it to track the file. And how do we do that? We either do that by using a command line or using the GUI, my editor's GUI, which is by adding a plus sign, by clicking on this plus sign, right? But because I'm still trying to explain the Git workflow, so the workflow first here is you initialize Git into your repository. Next thing, when you make your changes to your file, you add it. And so when you add it here, what you're basically doing is that you're now saying, now, Git, I want you to or not, yeah. So you're now saying now Git can now start tracking this file. And the moment you click on the moment you add Git, like you add Git, you add that file to Git, you've added it automatically, you've added it to something we call staging area in Git. And what that staging area is it's just some form of what that staging area basically is in Git. It's just another I wouldn't say another place, but yeah, you've added it in a space where space, what's the right word now? But yeah, the moment we add our file into the staging area, Git would create a snapshot of that file, right? And it's like saying you're creating a copy of that file, and it keeps it, it saves it in. I'm just trying to explain what happens under the hood, Sha. If you check in your if you check, it saves it in another, it saves the snapshot of that file, or sorry, of that change in another file. In a file in your .git folder. I'm going to show you this quickly. So if you check here, right? Here where I try to open .git. So if you look at .git, these are just, I don't know, I hope this is not out of the basic okay, just to keep things simple. Since this is a beginner class, I wouldn't want to start explaining what these things are because this is supposed to be a beginner class. But on a very basic level, if anyone has any questions, please just let me know. I'll be more than happy to answer so that I don't know. This class is not as interactive as it's supposed to be, Sha, but anyways, I don't know. I hope we're all following. Okay, I have some questions here. I don't understand your explanation for local configuration. Okay, so what I'm trying to say, so for local configuration, you're only configuring your name or your email on that project, like on that particular project, not for other projects. Do you understand? Like on that particular folder, if that's a better way to see it, that's what that means. I don't know if I was able to make myself clear, but yeah, that's what local configuration means. And then there's another question. Is there a way to restore my Git back to normal or delete previous work permanently on it? I don't know what caused the error on my Git. Every time I want to work on it, always giving me error. So when you say restore my Git back to normal, I don't know what that means, but if that means is you're trying to, I think you should further explain what that means, like what you mean by normal. Or if that means is that you're trying to restore your project from what it was before you made a change that you committed to Git. You can actually there's a on your Git UI, there's a command line that allows you to uncommit the changes. If you hover on these three dots, you see commit. Under uncommit, you can either you see commit. Under commit, you see other drop downs that you can either undo last commit. So when you do this undo last commit to undo the changes or the commits, please can you, whose phone is that phone? So if you do undo last commit to revert the last commit that you had just made, if that's what you're asking, you can either do that or you can undo all the commits at once, right? I hope that answers the question. But if that's not what you need, then I'll do a follow up. More questions. I always receive permission denied. At what point? Because I came in late, I don't know. You always receive permission denied. If you've not configured, first of all, you need to have an administrative access to do certain things to your computer. If you don't have for instance, if you're using on Linux, for instance, you need to do a sudo. You need to use sudo, to give you administrative access. So if you don't have administrative access, of course, you'll have permission denied. But yes, so that's about that. Please, I came in late. I don't know how to push your code from your code editor to your GitHub or stuff. Congratulations, now you came in late. We've not gotten to that point though, but yeah. So back to right. Yes, I was trying to explain the workflow. So once you have added your file change, what Git will say, you've now staged that change, and so Git will keep a snapshot of that project, that file that you have made. So what that means is that for every time we do a Git add, Git will keep a snapshot. Some people used to ask questions like, or at least when I learned about this snapshot, Git keeping track of every snapshot that we make of our project. I was wondering, I was like, come on, I felt like that wasn't efficient because imagine having to keep a snapshot of every change you made. But I came to understand that Git does it efficiently in the sense that it doesn't keep anything that is repeated, right? You only if it's snapshot is repeated, it doesn't keep track of it. So which is really cool. So which means you can still save. It only keeps what it only keeps what needs to be there, and that's really efficient. So you only get to see the things that you don't get to see the repeated changes, and that's still that's which is really cool. But yeah, so that's moving from now you've moved from community. So that's how so yeah that's so now I've so for me to add it to my staging area, if I'm using the GUI, I'll click on this, and then when you click on this plus sign, you see that it's no longer saying it's no longer that file doesn't have now has changed from U to A, and A in this case means added. But yeah, and then the next flow is for me to now commit that change, right? And for you to commit that change, you you're now basically authorizing Git to fully um have access to that file, right? And then not just fully having access to that file, it also has access to the detail of that change that you have made. I'll just go deep into that. I'll go further into what that means when we get into the using the command lines itself. But that's the flow. And then what I just wanted us to see here is that all the points I just wanted to make here is that at this point, Git will permanently store the changes to the repository. When it's been added to the staging area, it hasn't permanently stored it. But when you do a Git commit, it permanently stores the changes to the repository, right? So the next thing, I'm just trying to say, okay, here that the staging area holds snapshots of the changes, and then there's something we call the working directory. The staging area is always what holds the snapshots of your changes, while the working directory is where is your current folder before you commit. Because with time you get to see those terminologies: staging area, working directory, head, all of that stuff. But yeah, so that we don't get confused when we come across that. But moving on, so these are the few these are the things that Git keeps track of. Git keeps track of your ID, the ID of that commit. It also keeps track of the author, that's whoever made the change, and the time that the change was made, and then like I already said this before, that Git saves your files efficiently. The next thing, moving into the Git command. So the first Git command that I would want us to look into is the Git status. Now, so I just moved into, well, let me just use this, right? I want to use this. Let me just use this one. So when I do Git status is a command line that gives you the general status of what Git has pulled off. So when I did Git status, this is what we saw. So it's see the status is saying that we're on branch main. Well, this is the same branch main because my origin branch is main, and your origin branch is just basically the branch that that you, just as the name sounds, origin, the branch that your project originated from. Why that might sound weird, because when there was time I was even asking, why is it even called origin branch? And then when I made my research and I found out that okay, it's basically the URL that the branch that has the URL that your branch originated from. I think that's the best way to say it at this point, or for lack of a better word. But yeah, so the status tells us that this is on branch main, right? I'll also talk about how to link, remote branches later in this course. But yeah, now the next one we have is Git is telling me that no commits have been made yet. Yes, because I haven't made any commits yet. And then changes to be committed. So Git is also giving me a suggestion. If I want to just, this is the Git command. If I want to, just stage only this file. It's a suggestion. Then it's also telling me the tracks, the untracked files, as files that I need to keep track of, right? So whenever you want to know the status of things, you use the git command, the git status command, git status, as simple as that on your command line. And then there's also another command, git status command, for the shortcut. If you're the type of person that you like concise things, you don't want 20 messages, you just do the shortcut like git status /s and see. Says the same thing, but in a shorter way. But what I just want you to notice here is that the files that have been staged are green. If you notice closely, the files that have been changed are green, while the files that have not been changed are still red. It's just some form of nice visuals for us. And then the next one is to do a git add. Now, git add, like I said before, you can either do a git add from your command line or you can do a git add from your GUI. But I always prefer to use command lines because it gives me access to more. The GUI is limited because I can add files individually, right? So for now I just have one file, but I can do a git add index.js file, right? Now I've added the file. Oh, okay. And then if I had another file, let me just send this to a different file. Just remove this and add another file. New file, the GS, right? And I make a change. Another thing. And then I do a git status. Now I can see that new file that I've just created. Of course, it's untracked. That's why it's in red. So when I do git add new file, the JS, I've added the file. So that's how you add files. And so now it's now in my staging area. These two files are now in my staging area. So the next command is the git commit command, because obviously when you're adding a file, you know that the point of Git is for us to be able to track our changes. So you would want to add a message whenever you're trying to commit. Like I said earlier, when you do Git commit, you permanently store the changes to your repository. So whenever you do Git commit, you might want to add a message that is tied to that particular change that you've made, right? So that it's easier for you to know and for other people that are also working on the project to be able to know and also sync up and understand what's going on, what this change is for. So in my case here, the change I made here is that I added a new console.log. So of course, it's always advisable. First of all, the git command to even do is use git commit. There's something we call message, which is hyphen, not message, hyphen m, and then open a quotation, which is going to take the message of that commit. So in my case, all I just did was add a new console. So I'm just going to say added another console log was close with the quotation. So now, as you can see, after I did that, I got a response. I got an output from Git telling me that it says 2 files changed, which means that I changed 2 files, that I permanently saved 2 files into my repository. 4 insertions. What that means is that there are 4 insertions. Like I did 4 insertions on those files, on the lines, like 4 lines on those files. Then this one says it shows you create mode. It shows you the file that you have changed, which is the index.js file and then the new.js file, right? Which is really, really cool. And then the next thing, now I've permanently saved these changes to my repository. The next thing here is okay, yeah. So let's just pause at this, and then there are other commands too that I would want to introduce. So there's something I'll just jump into this. I'll just keep this on the side because we might not need to do this yet because we haven't added any URL to our repository. We haven't synced it with our remote repository. But yeah, there's something we call git remove because there are some times where you would want to remove a file in your git. Usually, if you were using a Linux operating system, you can use the rm command. But with Git gives us and it allows us to do a git rm. So let's say, let me remove the first file from my staging area. So what that means is that I'm going to do a git rm new file, JS, and enter. Right now, see what happens. It automatically, why this is cool is that to automatically delete the file. And when we do git status, see what's happening. So it says that it has deleted that new file, right? So what it does not just delete the file from your staging area, it also deletes the file from your yeah. So it's yeah. So it deletes the file from your staging area and also from your working directory, right? Remember when I specified the difference between the staging area and your working directory? But yeah, that's the cool thing about this command. There are other ways to do it. You can also do, if you had multiple files, you can do a git rm name of the file. I wouldn't want to delete this file, but just for the sake of you can delete multiple files. You can say new file, like name of the file.js. You can also use this or like you want to delete all files and do git rm all dot js file. This will delete all the js files, right? All at once, but that's not what we're trying to achieve. But yeah, so you also have another git command. What's the time? Okay, this class is supposed to end. Okay. So this git mv is used for if you want to move your files. But yeah, you might hardly ever use this command. But one thing I want to show you is the git diff command, which I think is really, really cool. So let's create a new file. So let me see, html.html, right? And then let me see, css.css. Don't do this at home. It's just for testing, for learning purpose. So yeah, let me just add a comment just for the sake of changing things, modifying things. So we have something, modified our file, right? So for now, we just have one file on our staging area, which is deleted. I wanted to show you what happens. So let me add one of the files. I wanted to show you what happens when you do git, how git diff allows you to, you know. So let me just add html.html, right? So I've added this file to my staging area, right? Now when you do git, normally when you do git diff, right, it doesn't show you anything, right? Because It doesn't show you anything now because it doesn't have anything to it doesn't have any for now all your or like all the files that you have. So you have of all the files that I have now. I have a file in my working directory, right? I have a CSS file in my working directory, and I have a HTML file in my staging area. But if I want to check like a yeah, like if I want to compare different files in my working I can do a git diff dash dash staged. I do a git diff dash dash save. So it will show me a difference between the files in my working directory and the files that I have in my staging area. So in this case, I have my new file, which is it shows me, it even shows me the change that I've made, right? Which in this case, it's a comment. I have a code that I commented out, which is in my staging area. And then it also shows me a change. Oh no, it also shows me the file that I have just deleted in my staging area, right? And it also shows you, like it shows you if it, this plus minus this minus sign is actually happens when it's saying when you've deleted it, like when you removed or when you deleted something, and the plus sign is when you added something. So yeah, that's what the git is for. There are also other cool git commands that that we can explore, but since this is a beginner class, I'm just going to stick to the most important ones or the basic ones. So that's about that. But I wanted to, so moving back to git pull, before we do a git pull, we have to go and make the, because we have to link, at least we have to link our project to a remote repository somewhere. Right now, I don't have anyone, so I haven't linked anyone, so I'm just going to go to my GitHub. I'm sure we all have GitHub accounts, right? If you don't have, open one, but I'll go to my GitHub. I don't have let me just create a new one. Let me just create a new repository. I'll call it Genesis Community Demo, right? Description is optional. Description is just basically what you're telling the people that are going to come have access to this repository about your project. But for the sake of this optional, this is a demo. Then, if you want to make your project public, you can leave this by default. But if you don't want to make it public, you can select the private option. But for now, we're going to keep it public. And then add a README file. This is just automatically add a README file by default. But we don't need to do that right now. So yeah, create a repository. Now I've created a repository, right? So all I need to do here, it gives you a command, like the follow-up commands after you create a repository. So we already did this. We don't need to do this. We have done this, git commit, right? And then, but yeah, the most important thing is, there's a command I missed, git branch. I'll show that later. But this is what the most important thing to me here. I'm going to copy the remote URL. I can either copy it from here, or you can just come here, easy way. Copy it from here, and then so what we're basically doing is that we're trying to sync we're trying to, in this case, in our case now, is that we're trying to sync our local repository to our remote repository. Because right now, this project is just on my local repository, like on my system. I haven't synced it yet. You have to confirm that when you do a git remote, check if there's any by the way, remote is basically a remote server. a URL, like it's somewhere, not a URL, like a server, a central server, not central, like a server where everyone can have access to from anywhere, that something that's not on your local. So when you do git remote, it doesn't return anything. Like it doesn't give you any remote because this project has not been or hasn't been tied to any remote server yet or any remote repository yet. So, but when we do git, the command for adding a remote repository is git remote add origin, name of the URL, and click and enter. So now we've tied our remote URL, we've tied our remote repository to our git. So when you do git remote, or git remote -b, anyways, same thing. So you can now see now that this project has been tied to a remote URL somewhere, right? So this will now enable us to be able to either do a git push. Git push is basically when you're pushing your local changes, as the changes that you have just made into a remote, that's a central repository. I don't know why I'm saying central. Central is not the right word. It's the I don't want anyone to get confused. Like when I say central, then maybe I'll get misunderstanding with a central system, like a central distributed system. Trying to just make that clarification. But yeah, so now with this, we can now easily do a git push. Because now we have a git this thing, git push. Sorry, about the branch that I said, the command I said I missed the git branch command. Git branch allows you to know the various branches, that's the local branches on your repository. So I can do a git push origin main, right? Origin here, like I already explained what that origin means, but this I can do this for my personal project. But when you're working on a project as a team, this would obviously not be advisable because the main branch is going to be the branch where every other person, syncs with. So you wouldn't want to push directly to that branch, right? So what we can do is, let me just close this. And then, so what we can do is we can create a new branch by doing git checkout. Is another command. There are two ways to create a new branch. You can do a git checkout -b name of branch. So I'll just call it staging. Now when I do git status, I'll see, when I do git branch, sorry, I'll see the two branches that I just created. Another way to create a new branch is when you do git branch, new branch. Then when I do git status, no, sorry, when you do git branch, see the new branch that I just created, right? But yeah, so I'm in my staging branch. So if I want to sync up the new changes that I've made, I need to git add all the files. So of course, I don't think I mentioned this earlier, but if you don't want to add all the files in your staging area manually, you can just do the git add space dot to add them all at once, right? This will add it recursively. like to add everything that you have, and then commit, git commit, -m, name of your commit. So in this case, I just say added, that's added new files and console the log. Yes, yes, I've committed my new changes to permanently to my local Git repository. Then the next thing is for me to do a Git push origin staging. Now I'm getting a response saying enumerating object 9, which is done. Then it also says counting the object 100%. Make sure it's 100%. 9/9. And then delta compressions using 4 threads, compressing objects is over 6 done, writing objects, you're looking out for 100%, it's done. There's no 5/6, or like you're sure that you can also see that the total changes. Once you're sure this is done, Git even kind enough to give you access to URL directly for you to go and merge, not merge, for you to go and create a PR to the branch, the central branch that everyone, like the central branch that will branch out from. So you can either do a command on the Mac, click on the URL, take you directly. So you can see the new file, everyone can see this is a new repository, and then this is the new, these are the files, so these are the new changes that I have made. And then what I can do now is to create a pull request. The pull request is saying, hey, I have just made changes to this my local repository, or this my repository, and I want you to add it to the general branch. And of course, when you click on the new pull request, you select the branch. So the compare branch is the branch that you're coming from. That's as in the branch from your local, which is staging. But in this case now, I don't want to sync it to my staging. I want to sync it to my main, right? I want to sync it to my main. In this case, I don't have a main yet. It's called the base branch. It's called the base branch, not main branch. But one thing in okay, just a second, please. So I have a branch, staging branch. So it's always advisable. Staging branch is usually the branch. It's always advisable to have, by default, Git will usually normally give you a main branch by default, but since in this case, in our case, we don't have a main branch yet. You can create a main branch by yourself, and yeah, okay. So let's just create a main branch. Git checkout. Oh wait, Git branch. Git checkout main. So I'll switch to main. Git push origin. I didn't spell it right. So I push to main, and then by default I need to have main. So now we have two branches, right? We have the main branch and we have our staging branch. So we'll select our base branch, which is the main branch, and then we can create a pull request. So you can add a comment if you want to, but yeah, we created a pull request and you can merge, you can view the pull requests to compare side by side. But since it's the same thing, of course, when we're working on as a team or in other projects, it won't be the same thing because the point here is that you're trying to sync your local changes to the main branch. But yeah, once you've checked and it's be able to check the difference, you can now quickly merge the pull request. And of course, there's a prompt for you to confirm the merge, and then yep, merge your change, and that's me. That's it. And then practices. I still have more best practices, but best practices in Git. Commit messages should be understandable. I mentioned that before. And then commit messages should not be too long and it should not be too short. And then there are teams that also have conventions on how to write commit messages, on how to create branches, whatever the convention is, try to follow through the conventions and then you find. I'll still send in more tips, or sorry, more common best practices, right? But yeah, that brings us to the end of today's class. I don't know if anyone has any questions. Happy learning. Thank you for your time. If anyone has any questions, let me know. Okay, so let's see in the question box. We have, I'm already having headache. Meleo, what's making you have headache? Am I the only one whose brain is filled up here? Yeah, Mele. This is where I always get headache. Where do you always get headache? Ask your question. So this class actually took long. This class started from 2 o'clock. Why won't you have headache, Mele? But I'm looking for questions. Uh, can we get this lecture documents job for us? Fine, Iduzi can help you with that. What is pull request all about? So pull request is basically it's nothing serious. A pull request is you requesting that your changes be compared to the base branch, and if everything is fine, if everything is perfect, if there are no conflicts in the changes, merge my local change to the base branch. That's what the pull request is. It's no long, no plenty, plenty. I don't know. I hope I was able to answer that question. Um, please, why did you do something like Git? Please, you did something like Git checkout origin. I want to get what that means. There's a typo here, but Git checkout is when you want to create. So there are two ways to create a new branch. You can either do Git branch, name of branch, or Git checkout dash B name of branch. The beauty of Git checkout dash B is that Git checkout will not only create the new branch for you, but also check you out into that branch. And what that means is that it will then navigate in. I don't know if navigate is the right word, but it's less, for lack of better word, but it will navigate you into that branch itself. So what you're basically doing here is that you're creating a new branch. I'm almost done. You're creating a new branch, and you're also moving into that branch. That's what Git checkout is, or that's what Git checkout does. And more questions. I don't know if that was clear. If it's not, still let me know. Then please, how do we push from our local server to our GitHub? I just showed you that now. In order to push from your local repository to your GitHub, you need to do a git push origin name of your branch, and then when you do that you can go to your GitHub and then create a pull request to the base branch, which is in my case the main branch. Please recap. That's recap. What am I recapping now? After coding on your IDE, how do we start pushing it? I just explained that now, and I hope that explains it. But the recap here now, am I supposed to start the whole lecture from the beginning, or is it specific?
No, like recap on the checkout.
Okay, so checkout is just you basically creating a new branch and entering into that branch, right? There are times where you would want, of course, not even that, there are times you would want to check out to a branch that is not the base branch, so that to allow for you to at least be able to compare the base branch. So you use the checkout command, git checkout dash b, name of the new branch, Shikina. Any more questions? How do we start the whole process? First of all, install Git. After you've installed Git, check the version of Git. After you've checked the version of Git and it's up to date, start your project, initialize Git in your project using the Git init. If you're working on something like React, you don't need to Git, or React already initializes Git for you by default. I'm talking to those of you that when you're working on a project that doesn't have Git initialized, you have to manually do that by doing Git init. Once you've done Git init, you're good to go, because now you're now saying, oh, you've created a Git instance in that project, and so Git can start doing whatever it is that it, or can start working on your project. And so once you've initialized Git, next thing is, of course, you make your changes, and then you add your changes using the git add commits, git add, which also in this case it's you're adding your changes to a staging area. So you've done that, you do a git commit, which permanently stores your changes into the repository. And after you've done that, you can now do a git push, and yeah, that's the process. After coding on your IDE, how do we start the whole process? I think that's how do we start the whole process? I think I just explained that. So that's the end. Or I'm not seeing any more questions. Yeah, okay. So in the absence of any more questions, is it a must to add Git in any of our projects? If you want Git, oh my God, okay, there are more questions. So, hey, wait. Okay, so where did I stop? Is it okay? Sorry. Is it a must to add Git in any of our projects? I mean, the point of using Git is for you to be able to track your changes and track your changes, track changes in your file, being able to have access to the histories in your changes. And so if you don't want to do any of this, then there's no need to use Git, and which I wouldn't understand why you wouldn't want to do a Git add of your changes if you don't need Git in your project. So if you don't want Git to add track any changes in your project, then you don't need to do a Git add. there's a short form, there's a shortcut actually if you want to, if you don't want to manually do git add and then do git or commit, right? So the shortcut is git I think git commit hyphen am. Am I sure? I think so. Let me just confirm. I do have a place where I saved some git commands. Just to confirm that, please, 1 second. Yes, if you don't want to manually do a git add, you can do git commit hyphen am. So that would automatically commit the code by skipping the staging area, like where you do git add, you know. I hope that answers your question. So another question said, please recap on remotes. Remotes, your remote is just the same thing as saying your remote is your remote repository. That repository where everyone has your base repository, where every other person that's working on your project can sync to. Anything that is not on your local, any that is not on your local is your remote. That one base branch that everybody pulls from and pushes from. That's your remote branch.
I mean the command git remote.
Okay, yeah, git remote. Git remote. So yeah, git. Okay, the command to add your URL. Git remote add origin URL. Please, ma, how can we have a, does that answer your question? Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Please, ma, how can we have access to you? Maybe in case we want to ask further questions. You already have my Git. Eduzi, you already have my, I'm on your Discord now.
Yeah, I think you are.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So I think we are done with this. The other questions have been answered, right?
Yeah, other questions have been answered.
Okay, no problem. Thank you, Groovy.
Okay, guys, thank you so much for this.
Thanks to everyone for following up. Although this number is way less than what we expected, but I'm super grateful regardless, and I'm saying thank you. All right,
Okay, I'm just going
video
to drop my, I'll drop my digits, Sha, in case. Please, but serious questions, Sha. Thank you.
All right, please, serious questions. Nobody should go to her DM and try to toast her, because all these upskill boys, all these upskill boys, I don't trust you people. But it's fine, Sha. Like I said, the last meeting we had, Git is not hard. You only have to practice it consistently to understand it more. It's not hard at all. So see you guys later. Remember about our session coming up on Friday and Saturday evenings. So I don't want to get any kind of excuse why you did not miss the class, why you missed the class, sorry, or any kind of anybody asking for one kind of any other thing. All right, now thank you guys. See you guys later.
All right,
Bye.
guys. Have a nice
Please, the
day.
number.
I just pasted it. All right. Bye. Bye.